This tutorial is part of a YouTube playlist. You can access this and many more of the tutorials in this course. If you do like this YouTube playlist and you want to access the whole course, you can do on Udemy. The link to the YouTube playlist and YouTube course is in the video description. In the previous tutorial, we set up SQLAlchemy, which is an open source toolkit and object relational mapping library for Python. It's going to provide us a set of high-level tools for working with relational databases in Python applications. So here in our Flask application. So we're going to be utilizing the ORM component of the SQLAlchemy toolkit. So this ORM layer allows us to map Python objects to database tables. So here within our Flask application, we're going to be building tables or models, and this is going to be very much written in Python. So SQLAlchemy is going to be able to translate our Python code into actual SQL code, which can then be utilized by the database to perform operations. Now, if you're not familiar with this, a database doesn't know how to read Python code. It has its own language, SQL, a structured query language. So that really is the key here. Utilizing SQLAlchemy, we can remain in Python. We can just keep writing our Python code, and SQLAlchemy ORM will translate our instructions into this SQL code so it can then be performed or executed on the database. Now, generally, there's a few things that we want to do with the database. We want to build tables and maintain the tables or the data structures inside of our database, as well as eventually we want to query the data. So we want to be able to insert data into the database. We want to be able to query data from and export data from the database. So query building, again, SQLAlchemy is going to provide these tools through the ORM feature. It's going to provide us a powerful query interface for constructing complex database queries using a Pythonic syntax. So again, we don't need to worry about actually learning SQL language. We can continue working within our Python environment using Python through SQLAlchemy's ORM features. So first up, we're going to need to create some models. So using Python, we're going to describe and create tables using Python, and this is then going to be translated into actual tables and applied to the database through SQLAlchemy. So what database are we going to be building, Mr. Zander? Well, here we go. This is it. This is our database ERD. You can see there are quite a few tables that we're going to need to build, and the relationships between these tables will also need to be defined. Now, as developers, we may not always be responsible for the initial database design process. In many cases, we're presented with an existing schema or design, and our role is to implement it within our application. This is the angle or approach that we're taking here in this tutorial. We will learn to understand this existing database schema through familiarizing ourselves with creating tables, fields, relationships, and constraints, and building any other relevant aspects of this database structure. As we start to query this database, we will also get a better understanding of the data structures and the relationships between the tables. This database models the tables and fields that might be required to store products in an inventory management system. Notice that there are two tables related to the product. In this setup, we're making the assumption that we want to sell products which have product lines. So imagine we wanted to sell t-shirts. We would need to stock not only the red t-shirt, but the blue version and the green version and the different sizes of those different colors. So the product table represents a table where we would collect and store related data about the product, but we would also need to store information about those individual product lines, and that's what the product line table is for. We are assuming that products will be related to categories. So you can see that there is a line here which represents a relationships, which we'll talk more about when we build the tables. So products will be related to categories or connected to categories. So we're going to categorize our products, and we can see on the left-hand side, that we have a product image table. So we're going to store images related to products. In this database design, we try to model the fact that each product line will have different attributes. So we have an attribute table here, and there is a relationship between the product line table and the attribute and attribute values. So we're going to specify an attribute. So let's just stick with the theme of a t-shirt. So the attribute of a t-shirt might be size. So we define these attributes in this attribute table, and then we can go ahead and define attribute values. So we connect the attribute to a value. So in this case, the attribute would be medium size, and size would be the attribute, and then the attribute value would be medium or small. And then we can associate those attribute values to the product line. This is a relational database, and you can start to see these lines are building relationships or potential relationships between tables, and we're going to utilize these relationships to be able to query the data and return data about specific products and product lines. In addition to recording attributes of a product, we also have product type. So we're making the assumption that this database is going to support the idea of our business being able to record different product types because we want to sell different products. Maybe we'll want to sell TVs and we want to sell PCs. So different product types. So we're going to be able to record information regarding the different product types and relate those product types through the relationships that we create between our tables, to this case, the product. So one product might be a TV. So we have product type TV stored in this table, and we'll be able to associate it to the product. And then we might then want to sell PCs. So we go ahead and create a PC product type and connect it to the product. Last of all, we have the seasonal events table. This table allows us to simulate the idea that some products are related to seasonal events. So we might want to have Christmas or Easter products. And potentially by doing that, you can see here within this table, we specify the start date and the end date because we might want only to show certain products at a certain time of the year based upon seasonal events that are happening at that point in the year. Now, please remember that this set of tables ultimately is designed for the purpose of learning how to build tables in our Flask application utilizing SQLAlchemy, and then later on actually querying our database. So managing data to and from our tables utilizing Flask and SQLAlchemy. Having said that, let's start building our tables.